Shalom, shalom, shalom. Let's check server statuses here, shall we? Hey, Twitch sees me. Salam alaikum. Are we on YouTube as well? Oh, we are on YouTube. Nice. Okay, my server statuses are both showing offline, so that's good that you guys can see me. Have I ever thought about doing the man bun? The wife wants me to do the man bun. I don't think I'm gonna do the man bun. What happened to my beard? I can't grow a beard is what happened to my beard. A bit louder? You guys want louder? Boom. That's as loud as I can go. Turn up your sounds. What's good, everybody? What's good? What's up, Nikki Two Tones? What flavor is this claw? This claw is natural lime. Natural lime. Hey, thanks. Glad you like my t-shirt. Let's do a quick flip of the switch. Get these numbers. For some reason the Twitch numbers aren't showing up. That's what my wife said too. She said she had the mango and the mango was the best. Mango didn't come in my pack. I bought like a variety pack. I gotta rock man bun with the claw. All right. I'll work on it. All right, we're having some weather issues here, by the way. Just FYI. So if the stream cuts out or if it's being wonky, it's pouring rain down here. The internet's been slow. We're having a little bit of issues today. So perfect weather for a stream, unfortunately. Hey, you're welcome for the follow. All right, it is 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. Let's get this going. So let's go ahead and cut over to the other screen. I have 2 whole PowerPoint slides for all of you. So give me 1 second here. Welcome to Web App Testing week number 2. This week we are doing the trivial challenges. So what does that mean? We're gonna learn some things today. We're gonna learn a little bit of enumeration. Last week I left you off with homework on, hey, you should enumerate the app and see what you can find, right? And this week we're gonna cover, okay, what do we find? And I'm also going to show you what Burp Suite Pro looked like. And I did an active scan with Burp Suite Pro. We'll take a look at what that looked like and what the status of that was. On top of that, we'll look at some inspection and talk about why inspecting elements are important. We'll look at cross-site scripting today. We're going to do reflected and DOM base. Stored is to come later. And then lastly, we're going to talk about code manipulation and UI bypassing. How can we alter code into our favor? You guys are complaining about death by PowerPoint. It was 2 slides. 2 slides, you dicks. Anyway, we've got 3 things here. If you are lost at any point tonight when we're talking about, well, 2 right now. If you are lost at any point when we're talking about coding, when we talk about HTML, we talk about JavaScript, we've got 2 good resources in my opinion. I'm sure there's more. You guys can link more if they're out there. Codecademy is a great website. You can sign up and try the Pro for free. I don't even think you have to submit a credit card. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. If you go to codecademy.com and go to the catalog, You come through here, they've got all different kinds of stuff. But if you're looking for some good things, how to build websites, great stuff. They've got HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Look into some of these things and just learn the basics. You don't have to be a full-on developer to be a pen tester, especially with web app. It just helps. Okay, it really, really helps. Somebody said no credit card required. That's awesome. They don't make you put in any credit card. So you get a full week of pro, and you can see which ones are pro by the upper corner here. I've done the Python 3 Pro. It's really good. And on top of that, you have this website here, Team Treehouse. Now, back in the day, this is how I learned. So it was about $25 a month for this. They got tech degree paths and stuff. I wouldn't worry too much about that. You can just do your courses based on, you know, how you want to do them. But they've got front-end web development here, which is exactly what we're looking at, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So $25 a month, really, really not that bad if you can swing it. If not, start out with Codecademy and just start learning there. Pick up a cheap book. This hasn't changed much. Just look for an HTML5 book or a CSS book or a combination. Look for a JavaScript. The library has great books on this stuff. So Team Treehouse is fantastic when it comes to learning. I like it better than Codecademy, but Codecademy is free. So just my opinion on that front. Okay, so let me open up my handy dandy notebook and we're going to cover everything today. So my challenge to you was to come into your Juice Shop app and you should have enumerated it, right? It will cover the enumeration process here in a second. One thing that I wanted to point out is I have two Burp Suite instances open. Now this Burp Suite here is my Pro Edition. And what did I do with my Pro Edition? From the external side here, unauthenticated, I ran a crawl. So remember last week we crawled, right? We just did a right click, scan, and then we crawled. I also ran an active scan. Not only did I run an active scan, but I ran the active scan with a bunch of extender features added in. You can see all the check marks here of what I ran. And if we look at what came back, it found, okay, some stuff, but really it didn't find a whole lot. And as you're going to see tonight, it should have found a lot more. So the reason I'm showing you this is because it's important to not rely on your scanner, right? So you don't rely on your scanner because it's going to miss things. Yes, it will pick things up and it will help. Like we picked up possibly Python code execution. We don't know if these are false positives yet. Picked up SQL injection and says, hey, this is SQLite. That is accurate, and this is one of the few accurate things that it found. Cross origin, it found cores. Okay, so with what you're going to see today, just on the unauthenticated side, know that it's missing stuff. Okay, so I'm getting complaints. Can you guys see? Can you see the screen? Everything's Gucci gang. I just want to make sure, because one of you saying you can't, but I would guess that more of you would be saying it. So, okay. I've confirmed people can see it. Slightly laggy. We're having some issues here. We're having some issues. We're getting some drop frames as well. I don't know what's going on with that. Unfortunately, there's a new setting that came out, and there's also bad weather and everything else that's been coming out. So we're going to push on with the stream. So anyway, okay. Back into Juice Shop. So I'm going to load up Juice Shop here, and what you need to do to follow along is just open up Burp Suite instance. And make sure that your proxy's running. You have your intercept on, and it should be pulling in your Juice Shop, right? So remember, we set up this last time. Hey, Retina, thank you for the sub. I appreciate that. So we pulled this up last time. It should be the same thing, right? So if we were to go here and refresh, and then we come back, you should have a blinking intercept. So we need to make sure that we're filtering through here. Now that we are, we can come over here and we can either copy this here, this HTTPS, and add this to our scope. And that's the wrong burp. Come through, and then we'll just say add to scope and just paste this juice shop here. All right, and now it's coming through. And I think the issue that I'm having, guys, is that the weather is causing a lot of issues right now. So this is being a little bit delayed on my side as well, guys. I can't do anything about the weather, unfortunately. Hey, thanks, SA1569. I appreciate it. Okay, so let's go up here and hiding not found items. Let's do show only in scope items. And then now we only got the juice shop here. So what's going on here? Well, we've got some things that are found, but nothing yet. It hasn't really crawled the page, right? It found a little bit of things here. It found API, assets, REST API, okay, socket.io. Not a lot of information yet. So what we're going to do is if we right click and we say scan, we can go ahead and crawl this page. Before we crawl the page, though, what I want to do is come into here and I want to just click around. That's one thing we should do, is just click around. So click on here. Maybe we can add a comment, just say test. Anywhere you like. Okay, we put test in there. That's fine as anonymous. Click on buttons. Let's click on the login form. Maybe try to submit some stuff. Okay, invalid password. Give customer feedback and just, you know, submit some things here. What's 2 minus 10 times 8? We've got 80. What is that? Is that negative 78? I don't even know how to do math. Submit, maybe not submit. Hey, it's submitted. Okay. Click through, about us. Same thing, do a search. We can just put in tests. All we're doing is just getting parameters in here. We just want to get as much information into this app that we can. Okay. So there's that. Now let's go check out Burp Suite one more time. And nothing new, that's fine. But let's go ahead and right click scan and crawl. And just say okay. Actually, we can do a resource pool, make this a little bit faster. I'll do 100 threads, say okay. This should finish really fast. You can see new things are coming in. And it's gonna start automatically solving challenges for us because some of our challenges were just navigating to pages. That's absolutely okay. We'll talk about the challenges still and go through it. So yeah, somebody, J Delta, noted that it found FTP. It absolutely found FTP. We'll talk about that here in a second as well. So your scan should be finished pretty quick. If we come through here, we see a few interesting files just looking at it, right? Again, we still haven't scanned for anything, so we won't have a lot of issues with the web app itself. We can see that, okay, there's a cookie that's coming through and it's not being set with a secure flag. We'll talk about why the secure flag is important later, and go from there. Same thing, we've got this HSTS. This is just a header issue here, so nothing too big of a deal. One of the most interesting files that we can look at first is this robots.txt. So if we click on robots.txt and we look at the response of the robots.txt, you can see it says disallow FTP. Now, if you don't know what robots.txt is, this just says, hey, what can or cannot be crawled by a web crawler, right? So they're saying, hey, don't crawl this FTP location. And this is just like saying to attackers, hey, don't come, don't look here. So it's telling us don't look here. Why is it telling us don't look here? Well, there's a folder here, FTP. Maybe something is interesting in this little area. So we'll have to check out the FTP area as well. As you can see, it already found it on its own. So from here, let's go ahead and start with our challenges. Now, we've already solved 2 on accident, and that is completely expected. That's fine. what we're going to do on this page, there's two things that we should do on a page. One is we should always right click and view the source. You're looking at the source code to see if there's anything of interest in here. Are there comments? Did the developer leave something behind? Are there hard-coded credentials, right? Nothing really that interesting in here that we can see. So that's fine. They've got a script running and it's just asking about cookies. So we won't worry about that right now. Let's go ahead and just right click again and say inspect element. And we can bring this up a little bit. Now the inspector is going to be our friend tonight. And I should note that tonight's going to be very chill. I don't even know if this is going to go an hour and a half. It might go an hour and a half. If it doesn't, not a big deal. We're on the trivial challenges at this point. The farther we go into the weeks and we get more difficult, it'll ramp up, I think, very, very quick. So with this, we're looking at the inspector, right? And we can hover over some things and kind of find our way around the page. Like you can see that, okay, it's highlighting everything here, but maybe we just want this top app bar. You see it's highlighting the app bar up here, and we can just dive right into this and scroll through, look around, right, and look at all this stuff. We can also come in here and there's a console for us to insert our own code if we wanted to. There's this debugger here, which is interesting because we can look at the JavaScript files. Now, if you look at this JavaScript file, look at this. It's not very pretty. We can actually come down here and just do pretty print source is exactly what it's called. And you can look now and see that there is some pretty print down here. Much better, but we're still looking at 44,000 lines of code. How the hell do we go through all this, right? Very carefully is one answer. We can look through it to see if we can find any, comments or anything of interest as well. It's a long time. This is why web app assessments take a long time as well, is because there's so much fine-tooth combing that you have to do. In this instance, we can do is just hit Control F, and we can do a find in file here. So we're looking for something first. Our first challenge is finding the scoreboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to search score, and I'm just going to cheat a little bit here and help you guys because 33 results return. Instead of going 1 through 33, go ahead and hit the up arrow and get to the 33rd result, or else we'll be disappointed scrolling through. So, and again, to get to the search bar, Control F to get to the search bar. So if we hit up and we get to the 33rd result, we see score dashboard, right? So in order to do this, we see that we're at a pound sign here, / let's just enter in score dashboard like that. And we solve the challenge of finding the scoreboard. So I'll give you guys a second to catch up there. So I'm going to go ahead and open up as well Juice Shop in a new tab. That way we have the scoreboard and we can reference it. So I'm not going to go in order. I put these together when I was prepping the lesson plan in a logical sense. So we'll cover these in a logical way, at least the way I think is logical. So we found the scoreboard. Great. We've already found the confidential document, but let's go ahead and just prove concept on that. So we found the FTP location. We can search for the FTP and come into there and see. And if you see, here's FTP. They've got a bunch of stuff in here. Suspicious errors, YAML file. They've got a bunch of different things. There's a quarantine. If you see juicy malware windows. So we don't need to dive into this yet. But if you click on the acquisitions here and you access that acquisitions, that is how you would gather the second flag that we're looking for. So this is just the point of doing this challenge and the next couple challenges are enumeration. This is all about enumeration. This is all about what can I find, what's not just on the surface, what is not just readily available and discoverable by Burp Suite, right? Burp Suite didn't discover this scoreboard by any means. This is all human interaction. And this is why until, our scanners get significantly better, we are still much needed, and we cannot rely on Burp Suite to tell us everything. Web app testing is 90% manual testing. So going on from there, there is a challenge in here that is talking about redirects. So it's asking us about redirect for cryptocurrency. So what we can do is we can right click and we can go ahead and view the source or inspect the element again. And let's go back into this debugger here and do a Control F. So we're looking for a redirect. So again, let's just search for this redirect. All this is trying to teach us to do, again, is just to kind of search around for things. So if I'm searching for a redirect, we can look through this code and just kind of tab down. I think it's the fourth one down. And it said cryptocurrency, a redirect for cryptocurrency. If you look here, this is Bitcoin data, and this is a redirect page. So we could literally just copy this and then go ahead and just paste it over here. Or freeze out the entire entire instance of this. Well, that's fun, right, guys? Let me kill Firefox. Maybe we found a new bug. Oh, no, it worked. Oh, I see what I did. Holy shit, it copied the whole console. Yeah, let's kill Firefox. That's bad news bears, guys. Okay, let's not open that. So it should look, and I'll print this for you guys in the chat. I absolutely copied 44,000 lines. Okay, that's the redirect. And I didn't paste it in both chats. Sorry, guys. There you go. I'll paste it in both chats. So you can see that if you follow that link, it will redirect. That's mine. You're going to have to replace your juice shop up in the top with whatever your Heroku app is. Okay, so again, this stuff is just all about searching, right? That's all it's teaching you to do here is searching. These are very trivial. They're kind of boring. We're going to get into the fun stuff here in just a second. So we solved that one. We'll talk about the error handling here in a little bit. So let's go ahead and talk about the repetitive registration. So here it says follow the dry principle while registering a user. So if you don't know what the dry principle is, the dry principle means don't repeat yourself. Okay, don't repeat yourself. So the dry principle, if you look it up, it states that every piece of knowledge must have a single authoritative representation within a system. Okay, so violations of this are actually called wet. So you're doing the opposite of dry, which is called wet, right? So that wet stands for write everything twice, we enjoy typing, waste everyone's time. You should write your code logically, and your code should not repeat itself. Okay, so this is the dry principle. Now it wants you to follow the dry principle when registering a user. So if we go into user registration, so let's go to login here. And it says not yet a customer. Okay, well, in this situation, if we're going to follow the dry principle, where can we repeat ourselves twice? Right here. So we're looking for an error in terms of testing, and this is just showing you a way. The purpose behind this is to show you a way to test this password authentication. So go ahead and put in an email account. I'll just say test@test.com. And what you're going to want to do is type in a 5-character password. On the second one, go ahead and start typing that 5-character password. And it should be popping up for you. It should say, hey, let me refresh this. It should say for you guys, there we go. Now we're getting the error handling. So test@test.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for me. And then you start typing a password. It should say, hey, your passwords do not match, right? Okay, make them match. Now come back up here, change it from a 5 or 6 or whatever. Now these passwords don't match, but it's not telling us that they don't match. Right? So this is an issue. This is an error, especially if we can submit this and register that user. So put your eldest sibling's name, middle name, we'll just say Bob. And let's try to register a user. And we did. We successfully registered a user. So repetitive registrations complete. And we could see what password that actually took. So it took the first password. The second password check was never even being supplied to the system. It's actually just taking the first password and checking if that second password was a match. As soon as it was a match, it goes ahead and stops, right? It stops looking for it. So let's go ahead and log back out. We're going to stay on the unauthenticated side for a little bit longer. KH405, thank you so much for the sub. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so from here, let's look at a couple more challenges. So we're going to look at some improper input validation here. And we're going to actually write our own code. So let's write our own code and talk about let's talk about some HTML forms and how they work, and then you'll get to see this in an example. So if we come over, and actually I'm going to load up Kali for this. I'll make this bigger for you guys. Now, what I'm about to show you, I have seen on web app pen tests before, in the very recently. So this is an issue with how some people decide to store credentials. So let me show you. So let's go ahead and write an HTML document. So the document I want to write is going to be very simple. Let's just say gedit, and we'll say we'll just call this index.html. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna say HTML head like this. We'll do a title, and we'll just call this my form. If I could type and kill the title, and then we'll put in the body. This is pretty standard HTML, right? We could declare the doc type at the top if we want. So from here, let's go ahead and put in a div, and we're gonna put in a header. We're gonna say super secret creds, right? Thanks for not using Vim, you're welcome. /h3 here. And let's go ahead and tab in, and we'll add another div, and let's add a form inside this div. So we'll add a form, and we'll break a line, give some spacing. And for the form, we'll say username. We'll break it out, and then we're gonna put an input field here. Input type equals text. And then we'll say name equals username. So we're just going to declare a name for this input. And then we'll give it a value of like Joe. That gedit tab in yo. All right, break a line here, right? And then let's put a password. And again, we'll do input. And then we'll give it a type of password. We'll give it a name of password. And we'll even give it a value of password. Okay. So now let's kill the input here. And let's kill the form. And I didn't kill this out. kill the form, kill the div, and the other div, and then end your body, your head, and your HTML. I will give this a second for you guys to catch up with what I just typed. So all we have here, if you're not very familiar with HTML, is we just wrote a quick little header. It says super secret creds. We've got two fields here. We've got one that's going to say Joe, one that's going to be hidden password field. Again, I have seen this in the recent testing experience. So let's go ahead and save this. And then we can just say Firefox index HTML. Did I screw up my, I screwed up my code? That's fine. I'm not concerned. Yeah, it should go body, then head, and then HTML. Or however you've got it. So anyway, if we look here, we've got a username and a password. Doesn't look beautiful, doesn't need to, right? We don't know what this password is, right? It's asterisk out. If you have ever been in an application and you see your password stored like this, always good to know if you could just right click and inspect the element and see if there's anything that you can do to tamper with this. So we look down into the form, we come down here, and you see that the value here is, or the type is considered password. But what if we just change this to text? And then it reveals the text that's sitting in behind here. So anyway, so we've got the password revealed. Now this is an easy way to reveal passwords. You're welcome. That guy was getting annoying. Anyway, we don't have tolerances for know-it-alls on the stream, guys. So from here, this example, this demonstration that I'm showing you, the whole reasoning behind it is because that leads into what we're going to see, and this is very real world. So if we go back into our application and we say, okay, back to the scoreboard. Okay, so we are looking to solve now. Which one are we after? We are after the 0 stars. Okay, so this is the next one we're after. 0 stars. So in order to do 0 stars, we got to give a devastating 0-star feedback to the store. Okay, so if we go to contact us and go to customer feedback, this is where we give feedback. Now, we can write a comment, something like, "You suck. I am a keyboard warrior who leaves terrible comments on pages, but never reveals my true identity." Does that sound like it came from the heart? Because it did. All right, 3 times 8 is 24. Times 10 is 240. Solve the CAPTCHA. Now we still can't hit submit, right? It wants us to give some sort of rating. Okay, it wants us to give 1 through 5. But in order to actually complete this challenge, we have to leave a 0-star rating. How are we going to do that? Well, I just showed you we need to go back to the inspect element and try to play with the UI here. Okay, so we'll scroll down, we find the div exactly that we need. Keep clicking in, you can just highlight over what you want. Now we found the button. Okay, so you see the submit type here is set to disabled. What if we just edited that and said enabled? And look, now the submit button is able to be submitted. Right? So all we did was mess with the JavaScript here on the UI, and now we're able to submit. And I just cleared a couple other ones because I forged feedback as somebody else. It was stored in here. This is kind of cheating. I'm going to wipe this, but not going to worry about that too much. Okay. So from here, we've got a few challenges left, right? Privacy policy, that is on the authenticated side. XSS Tier 2 or Tier 0 is on the authenticated side. I want to clear out the unauth side first. Let's go ahead and go to error handling and talk about how you're supposed to provoke that error. So one way to do it is through the login page. We can, if we wanted to test for something like SQL injection, we can just type in like, you know, apostrophe here and see if we can inject anything. And look, we got an object error. Right away, this throws an error. So when you see an error on some sort of injection like this isn't good. And we'll talk more about injections and especially SQL injection throughout this course. We don't need to know what it is right now. We need to know that if we fuzz parameters, if we start fuzzing around and where places SQL might be, we might identify an issue like here, right? We can type in whatever we want and we're getting this error, and we can inspect the element and we should be able to look at the errors as well, and see what issues are going on. It's a little easier to see. It's a little easier to see on Chrome, but you can see that this is going to be SQLite as well. So when I said earlier that Burp Suite identified SQLite, it is correct. And it's identifying it in the response with how it's coming back. And it's actually, some of this is actually pulling down. You can see the server error here that's pulling down the response. If we were to push this through to a repeater, I'll bring this and make this bigger. That way we can see exactly where it's seeing another error page here. What's going on is it's looking through the rest right here at the products, and we haven't gotten this far, so don't worry about this. But you can see that it's injecting here just this one apostrophe, right? And through that apostrophe, errors out the server. And it causes the server to go crazy. You start seeing SQL syntax errors. And when you see SQL syntax errors like this tells us that we have SQL injection, right? Somebody said you've never seen a SQL injection finding in Burp in real life. I've seen them come up. I've never seen a valid SQL injection in Burp Suite either. So they're not as common as they used to be in terms of finding it like that. So most of this is all testing manually. So in this instance, you know, we would fuzz parameters just like you see here. If we see this Q equals, we're going to fuzz this parameter. And we get this error like this, right? This is obvious SQL injection. Now we could have an instance where we don't show anything here, but we still actually have SQL injection, and that's called blind SQL injection. Blind SQL injection, again, we'll talk about that as well, but that we're going to start issuing time delayed commands. We'll say, hey, delay for a second, delay for 10 seconds, and then you send it over and you wait for a response. Does the response come back in 1 second? Does it come back in 10 seconds? Then you know, right? So, but again, right now, we just need to identify that we can cause an error, and here it is. We can see there's SQL errors. So Burp did identify this one correctly. This actually triggered an issue for a later scoreboard. So it got us one scoreboard. I don't know if it'll actually show here. We've triggered a couple in 2 and 3, and that's fine. We'll cover these again next week. So, all right. So that leaves us with 3. And this is where the course gets to the fun stuff. You guys have been with me, and you're like, this is boring, and that's fine. At this point, it should get interesting. So where we're at here, we're we are going to talk about cross-site scripting. And when we talk about cross-site scripting, all we have to do is think about it as malicious code injection. That's all we're doing, malicious code injection, okay? And we're going to be injecting JavaScript. Now, with this malicious code injection, we can do a lot of stuff, right? We can steal cookies, we can take over sessions, we can do key logging, we can inject beef hooks, etc. There's a lot of things that you can do with cross-site scripting. So with that being said, today we're just going to demonstrate that cross-site scripting exists, and then as we go, we'll build upon it. So in this instance today, we're going to be talking about two types of cross-site scripting. Ideally, there are three, okay? Not ideally, there are three. We'll talk about all three today, but we'll only be showing two. Now, the three types are reflected, stored, and DOM. Reflected is what it sounds like. I entered it on a page, a pop-up comes up with the injection and says, hey, you injected this. This does not go into the server, right? This is client side. So it doesn't get stored anywhere, and that's why it's called reflected. Stored would be like putting something in a comment field, having that sit on the page, and then when somebody goes to access that comment field, it pops up for a different user, for the same user, doesn't matter. That's stored. It gets stored on the server, and it's there permanently until it's removed. Last one is DOM based, right? So DOM is the document object model. It provides the object-oriented representation of HTML documents, right? So this is your DOM here. We can use the DOM to generate dynamic content like you see here and get malicious with it. Now, there is a fantastic website that I've already lost. Let me see if I can pull it up. Nope, not there. Let me grab the link. There is a great website I found, so... cip.ch, here it is. I'll post this in the chat. I had it up. Oh, I know where it is. It's over here. So this website, I'll post this in the chat. This is a good example of DOM based. And before we go too deep into DOM, let me give you an example, just write it out real quick, of what injection looks like. So let's go into, we'll just call this XSS, and let's talk about what cross-site scripting looks like. So let's say that we have a PHP document, right? Let's just call this index.php. And in index.php, when you go to the home page, the PHP might look something like this. You say PHP, and then you have a username, and that is set to like get username, right? So we're going to pull down the username, and then we pull down the username, as you guys have seen in the corner of a web page or wherever it is. It might say something like hi username, something like that. Okay, and then we'll just close this off. Okay, so if we were to put something in index.php and we said username equals Heath, then it would just come back and it would say something like, hi Heath, right? But what if we did something malicious like index.php username equals script alert 1 script? Now it's going to run hi script alert 1 script, and that should pop up an alert on your page. It's taking this and injecting it into this echo, and it's echoing it back. And this is all it is. We're injecting. This is a very, very, very basic example, but this is what injection is. We're taking something malicious and we're throwing it in, right? So let's talk about the first challenge, and we're gonna go out of order, and we'll talk about the DOM base. Now, somebody said DOM base is difficult. DOM base is very difficult to wrap your mind around. It's very, very similar to a reflected, but it's not reflected. Okay, they're slightly different in the way that it's handled. So DOM has what's called a source and a sink, right? So when a user puts in malicious input, that's what's called the source, right? Wherever you enter in that malicious input, that's the source. Where that's executed is called the sink. And this article that I wanted to show you was fantastic. I don't think that there's really a better way to describe this. This has got so much information in it, and I'll put this in the YouTube video description if you're watching it later. So it covers what DOM-based XSS is, and why I really like this is here it's got the nice HTML already written out. So if you see the HTML here, what's going on? They've got a JavaScript script here, okay? And they've created a variable called source, and they just say hello, and similar example to what I was saying, right? Hello Heath, hello whoever. They're doing this decode URI because most modern browsers nowadays will actually, will obfuscate this malicious content. So for the example of this, they're going to not allow that to happen, and we're going to go ahead and just have a hash split. So this hash split is going to be, if you see like the www.whatever.com hash here, you're going to put your code in after the hash. So where we inject this, we're injecting here, right? This is what we're going to take advantage of. This is the source. Again, where we are putting in our malicious input, this is the source. Now we're going to take that input and we're going to print that out to the web page, right? We're going to put this on the inner HTML. And that is the sink. This is where it is executed, is right here. So if you were to copy this and paste this into an HTML file, and you then ran this simple script here, you would get an alert. You would get a pop-up. So all we're doing, again, we're injecting this malicious code into this area right here and having something happen. We can get very, very dangerous with this. Now, in terms of reflected and DOM-based cross-site scripting, you have to have some sort of social engineering involved with it. So you will figure out that the application's vulnerable, and let's say you want to take advantage of an admin user and steal their cookie. Well, you're going to have to phish the admin user or do something to get them to open a link that will send that cookie back to you, and that way you have access to to impersonate that user. With reflected, same thing, so, right? Reflected and DOM are the same thing. When it comes to stored, a user, low-level user can, for example, store cross-site scripting somewhere, and an admin user can go to that page. You won't get an alert. We're not going to be obvious and put a pop-up alert. We're going to store something in there, whether it's a beef hook or some sort of key logging, or just, hey, give me this cookie and send it to this website. That's all we need. And if it's stored there, any user that accesses that page will be infected with what we're going to do. So stored is very, very, very dangerous. These other ones are a little harder to exploit because they involve some sort of social engineering aspect to them. Okay, let me take a drink of my claw, guys. How are we doing so far? Everybody good? Stream still okay? The weather's getting better. I've noticed less drop frames as well, so good stuff here. You can't see my pretty face? You'll see it here in a little bit, J Delta. Okay, so here we have we have our first challenge. Let's go back to the site. So if we come here, we want to do a DOM-based cross-site scripting, and it even gives us what we want to use. This is perfect. Just copy this. So just copy this here, and let's go back to this. Let's set some examples as well. So we could start trying to put this around and try to find it, right? Like, you want to fuzz everything that you can find. You want to fuzz parameters. We could say submit here, okay? And this here is stored, right? If we were to close this out and come back in here, this is stored. Now, is it alerting? Are we doing anything here? No, it's not causing any kind of pop-up. We can see the code. This isn't doing it for us. But this is what a stored instance would look like. If somebody were to navigate to this and say, oh, crap, You know, there's the stored instance. So we can still look around. There's customer feedback. Unless that's somewhere that can get access, maybe we can exploit that. So probably not a good place. We can do the search bar. Now the search bar will be interesting, right? So let's take a look at the search bar. Let's search for something like test. And use the search feature here. Okay, and we can see that test came up, and you can see the query up here as being q equals test. So as of right here, what we can do is we can play around and see. We could just paste it in and see if it works, right? But to prove concept that this is DOM based, that we are not doing reflected, that this is interacting with the DOM here, let's do this. Let's make this an H1 on this test search. You can see the test gets inserted right here as well, right? When we search for test, it gets put in here. Let's search for H1 on the test. Holy shit, that just got bigger, right? And we could just start, I could put some break lines in, put a couple break lines, and then we can do maybe like an H3. Oh my God, something, right? And search for that, and look. Okay, it didn't take my break lines. But we could do, do something like that. Let's see if it takes those. It does. Okay. And you can see we're injecting here. We have absolute injection, but we're controlling what's on the page right here. This is never hitting the server. This is only hitting what's in front of us. So when we go and we get malicious and we just paste what they wanted us to paste, you can see that we get the cross-site scripting. Okay, so this is cross-site scripting. We injected this alert and told it to pop up on this page, and it did just that. You can see up here, we can do the exact same thing by just pasting what we have and submitting it, and it'll do it too. So we can fuzz either the search bar or the parameter. DOM is incredibly hard to find. DOM is not easy cross-site scripting. This is the easiest example that I could probably provide and will ever show you. There is a great example as well. If you go out to Google and you go to Portswigger, DOM XSS, you come over here and they've got their new academy, and it's fairly well thought out. They've got different topics as well. You come through here, it talks about the sources, it talks about the syncs. It gives you different labs to try this. So if you're weak or you feel like you might be weak in DOM base, and you just got to practice. But for me, I will be honest, DOM base is a weakness for me. I have found reflected a million times. I've found stored before. DOM is very, very difficult for me. So somebody asked, what's the application of this if it never hits the server? So what you could do, say you have this link here, right? You take this link and you send it to somebody maliciously. And you say, hey, I need you to open this link right now, or whatever. However you're going to social engineer against this. You get them to open the link. This link is going to have some code. It's not even going to look readable like this. It'll probably be URL encoded, and it just looks like a long link. And that link is what it's going to do is when they get here, it's not going to pop up XSS. It's going to say, hey, take the document.cookie and take that cookie and then send it off to this malicious server. So you have to get them to execute this. So anyway, base 64 encoding. You guys are funny. Okay. So this is a good example of a DOM, and that's how you could utilize it. Same thing with the reflected. You would send them some sort of social engineering malicious link with still cookies, etc. There's a lot of things we can do that I mentioned, and we'll talk about prevention here in a second. Can the cross-site scripting header prevent this? Yes, but there's a lot of other things. It doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to prevent it. It's just an added help. There's a lot more remediation. We'll talk about remediation here in just a minute. So let's go ahead and log in now and close out of this, and we'll go into our test. You just saw my old work email, guys. Good job. And I was at test.com. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Log in. And one of the challenges as well was to find the privacy policy. If you come into privacy and security, there's your privacy policy. Why is it having us do this? Why does it want us to read the privacy policy? Enumeration. It wants us to enumerate. We should be reading this. We should look at two-factor. We should look at change password. We should look at every single page and make sure that that's coming across when we're in our Burp Suite, right? All these new pages should be coming through. So super important for that. So anyway, in here, we have one more challenge if we go to the scoreboard. We got 8 out of 9. Should have 8 out of 9 right now. We need to find reflected cross-site scripting, same payload. Okay, they give us the payload, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. Copy that guy again. And all we're going to do is look for somewhere that we can inject it. Now, for the sake of time, I will go ahead and just show you where we're going to inject this and why this is reflected. So if we come here and we go to track orders, now we can search for an order and try to track it. Now it looks for the search here and doesn't find anything. Okay, we can come back and we can try to track orders again. Now you saw the text was in there. Maybe we can try to inject, right, and say test H1, see what comes back. Okay, looks a little bit bigger. And how about we just try to do that? And that pops the cross-site scripting alert. So that's it. That's just another, this is a reflected. We're not interacting here with the DOM, we're actually interacting with the page itself. So it's taking the request and then it's putting it through and we are getting our cross-site scripting here. So that should be all of the scoreboard. Let's talk mitigation here really, really quick. So this was an easy week, right? Not too bad. We did the trivial challenges. We're going to get into some of the easier challenges, the easy challenges next week, and we'll get into some of these. And then as we go, it should get a little bit more exciting. So on the remediation side of things, I think this would be easier to explain if I bring up a little notepad. So I will do that. Gedit XSS again. That's fine. Am I going to cover all the challenges? We sure are. Do all the challenges. So let's talk about the different ways we can improve here, right? We talked about the cross-site scripting header. Yeah, that's a good start. The main recommendations we make that when we find cross-site scripting, okay, encoding. So if we have something like script, what encoding will do is we can say, hey, when you see this come through, go ahead and actually convert it over and we'll just make it into this. So that when we actually put it through and it hits the server, it looks more like this. Okay, so this is an example of what encoding is. So all we're doing is converting a control character into its escape sequence. That's it. So there's encoding. There's also what we call filtering. With filtering, it's kind of like encoding, but instead of replacing, we're just going to completely remove it. So if we have script, we're just going to say, get rid of those. Just put in script. So that's a little bit of difference there between encoding and filtering. There is also validation, right? So validation is just a comparison against a list. So if we're doing validation, we might say, hey, script tags completely eliminate those. If you see those come through, I don't want that in there. So we're going to validate what's coming through the server before we actually run it, right? So we'll take that script tag, throw it away completely. So you'll have a list of payloads and things like that you would use to put into a list and validate against. And then lastly, there is sanitization, which is kind of like a combination of doing all these. So you'll do the escaping, filtering, validation, and you just ensure that nothing triggers. So I'll write that out, sanitization. So we talked about the header. Another thing is on your cookies, and we saw the cookie earlier. Let me bring it back up one more time. You saw that this is without a secure flag. Secure flags are important. If you look at your cookie, you can see that it's HTTP only. Okay. The other flag that we should see set on this here is called a secure flag. Now, the secure flag is used to prevent cookies from actually being observed. So if we were to do like a cross-site scripting attack and it said document.cookie or whatever, it was trying to take the cookie and steal it, the secure flag would remove that. It would not allow that to happen. So this is why you always recommend that when you see something like this on a web app pen test, this is a finding. You should always have the HTTP only, and you should always have the secure flag set. Both flags should be set. This will absolutely 100% come up in an interview. It's come up almost all the time for me when I've been interviewing. So this comes up. I've had what are the 3 types of cross-site scripting come up a bunch of times. I've had questions not only about cross-site scripting and how you find it and how you validate it, but again, how do you prevent it? What do you make a recommendation to a client, right? Encoding, filtering, validation, sanitization. So a bunch of different ways here, right? And that is 9 o'clock on the dot. 1 hour lesson. I think this is perfect. We nailed it. So let's go ahead and close this out. We'll go over to some Q&A. Which is worse if you find a cross-site scripting? The worst cross-site scripting you can find is a stored. A stored, especially if the stored affects the admin. If you as a low-level user can affect an admin user and you can prove that concept, depends on the bounty. I just saw a stored pay